the word commandment, it's been bashed over and
Well,
over and over
sure.
that it's all one thing, that it's the
Right.
10 commandments anytime you hear it.
Right.
But we just saw in Timothy that it was speaking of the commands that he was just given.
Sure. Let's
So,
let's go to John 13 in verse 34. So Jesus is talking to the disciples. You can even start at 33. Little children, yet a little while I'm with you. You shall seek me. And as I said unto the Jews, whither I go, you cannot come. He's speaking of his ascending in Acts chapter 1, his ascension. So now I say to you, verse 34, a new commandment I give unto you. What's the new commandment? That ye love one another as I have loved you, that ye also love one another. So if we want to talk about commandments and point back to it, Jesus gives these new commandments. Now, this is not in addition to the other ones, because when we get to the idea of the upper room, which is in Matthew 26, that's where the new covenant begins. And so that's a breaking off of the old contract, the old covenant. And all we're left with is just simply what Jesus has told us in a moral sense that carries over into the new covenant. Yeah, I mean, commandment. Which commandment? I have commandments I could show you throughout the Gospels that you can't keep, because they're commandments that have to do with the temple, or commandments of who to say hello to in whose house. They're dead. They've been gone 2,000 years. So I could say, Tracy, you're not going to keep the commandments of Jesus. And you're like, but Ken, he said to go say hi to so-and-so on whatever street. I can't say hi to them. They're dead. Well, I'm sorry, Tracy, you're just not keeping the commandments of Jesus. I mean, my
wow,
goodness, right? So
good point.
context matters. You can't keep the commandments of God. In fact, I can show you in the old covenant where he gave different people different commands. So he could say to this person, I want you to do this. And he says to the other person, you better not do this. He's talking to two separate people, and he gave them polar opposite commands. He wanted them to do something different. And so if I were to try to apply that to my life, which one do I listen to? Simple. The answer is simple. Whichever one's talking to me. If you'll be a manic depressant if you try to follow the commands of God to everybody. You can't. They're not even in conjunction with each other. Sometimes they contradict each other because he's talking to different people. The key to this thing in Bible study is to say, which ones are talking to me? Once you figure that out, then you got the whole thing licked. And that's the whole idea here. I mean, I can't tell you how many times people take me down the First John road. And First John says, if you love me, keep my commandments and all this. And I always try to get the conversation to get to define commandment for me in the immediate context.
Yeah.
And John does in First John. And it is to believe on the Lord Jesus Christ. That's the commandment in First John. But the people that want to push this command connected to Exodus 20, which is just ripping it out of context, they're not letting the passage define it. So yeah, you have to look in the immediate context.